Francesca. And hi, my name is Larissa, and I'm joined by Chantel and Francesca. And we're going to talk about temperament, emotions, and the self within infancy and toddlerhood. Temperament. Temperament is the individual differences in emotionality, motor activity, attentiveness, adaptability, and self regulation. We can see these aspects and these differences in patterns of sleeping, patterns of waking, feeding, fussing, and crying among infants and toddlers. Some ways you can measure temperament is one through questionnaires where you ask the parents to rate infants on a Likert scale from 1 to 10. Now, the advantage of this method is that parents know their infant best, so they're likely to rate them as accurate as possible compared to anyone else. But the disadvantage is that there's inconsistent parental perceptions, and sometimes the mother may view the child differently than the father just because of different experiences with that child. Now, there's also observation, which is in a standardized lab settings. And some of the dimensions that researchers look at are activity level, social inhibition, irritability, attention persistence, sensory sensitivity, negative emotionality, regulation, anger proneness, social fearfulness, and a lot more, but these are just some of the common ones that researchers look at. Biological foundations of temperament are evident before birth. One finding that researchers found was that greater variability in fetal heart rate correlated with greater emotional reactivity, more irritability, and more difficulty in infancy. Another one is that more active fetuses in the womb were tended to be more difficult, less predictable, less adaptable, and more active as infants, which was more of a difficult temperament. They also found a correlation between bold, outgoing, and risk taking children with high cortisol levels in novel settings. And so here we see that there are biological foundations of temperament that we see even before birth. Infants with difficult temperaments are prone to developing a secure attachment with their caregiver, assuming that the caregiver is sensitive, responsive, and emotionally warm. Because if they are not sensitive, responsive, or emotionally warm, then the child is more likely to develop an insecure attachment. Now, a child with a difficult temperament places greater demands on caregivers compared to resilient temperament children. And this is why they are more prone to developing a secure attachment because they require more from their caregiver. Now, personality is also related to temperament, as we've seen that irritability, negative affect, and difficultness in infancy predict internalizing and externalizing behaviors later in life. We've seen specifically that temperamental fearfulness in response to novel situations is linked with internalizing and social anxiety, while positive affect, sociability, active level are linked to lower levels of behavioral problems.
This next section is about emotions, which sheds lights on the world of emotional development in infants. Understanding emotions in infancy is crucial for caregivers, educators, and parents alike, as it lays the foundation for healthy emotional regulations and social interaction throughout life. As we talk about emotions, we'll talk about the nature of emotions. So, emotions in infancy are fundamental responses to stimuli reflecting infants' internal states and external environments. Also, the basic emotions such as joy, sadness, anger, and fear emerge early in infancy, often expressed through facial expressions and body movements. So, moving on, talking about emotions, some key points were attachment and emotional bonding, which is the formation of secure attachment with caregivers. It's essential for emotional development in infancy. Also, secure attachment fosters a sense of trust and security, enabling infants to explore their environment and express their emotions freely. Another key point was emotional development and brain growth. Emotional experience in infancy contribute to the development of neural pathways in the brain, and it's shaping future emotional responses and behaviors. Another point was positive emotional experience promote healthy brain development. while chronic stress or neglect have a detrimental effects on emotional regulation and their overall well-being. This next section is on the self. And with this section, we want to have an understanding of the development of self in infancy and early childhood, which provides insight in the complex process involved in forming identity and self awareness, also laying the foundation for later social and emotional development. In this slide, we're going to talk about the self and what that entails. So we have the formation of self, language and self expression, mirror recognition, and the social comparison and identity. So with the formation to self, infants begin to develop a sense of self through interaction and with caregivers and their environment. They gradually become aware of their own existence and distinguish themselves from others. The next key point was language and self expression. So, with the language, it plays a significant role in the development of self expression and self awareness. As infants acquire language skills, they can communicate their needs, desires, and thoughts more effectively, which helps contribute to their understanding of themselves. The next key point was the mirror recognition. And infants typically show signs of recognizing themselves in the mirror around 18 to 24 months. And this is a milestone that indicates emerging self awareness. The last key point that we're going to talk about is the social comparison and identity. So, children begin to compare themselves to others, usually when they become a toddler. And this helps shape their self identity. And this process usually continues throughout childhood and adolescence, which helps influence their self esteem.
So now discussing the article Temperament and Emotions. The audio is not loading for this group. And this is Professor Sebastiani. So I am going to read off of the slide because I don't have a, oh my gosh, a script prepared. So the scholarly article is on temperament and emotion. Temperament and emotions are very important areas of study within psychology. Temperament refers to an individual's biologically based behavioral and emotional tendencies. It's often thought to be stable throughout life and can influence how we react to different situations. Researchers like Leah A. McNeil and Morley Perez Edgar explore how temperament traits interact with emotional experiences and expression, shedding light on how personality influences emotional responses. This article touches base on temperament theories. The article also touches base on contemporary research that focus on intrinsic, which is biological and cognitive, and extrinsic, which is contextual, processes which play huge roles in the links between temperament and social emotional behavior and outcomes. So, to test your knowledge, I invite you to reflect on the following question, which is how do various factors, such as environmental influences and caregiver interactions, impact the development of temperament and emotional regulation in infants and toddlers during the first 2 years of life? And after you reflect on this question, this is also the question that our facilitation group has chosen for their discussion. So this leads naturally to your discussion post. I believe that is all for these slides, and I hope everybody has a fantastic day.